All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Unified Triplicity. My name is Josh, and goal of this show is to hopefully dissolve the boundaries in your life that block you from seeing the deep spiritual truths that are all around us for everyone to see, if only they have the eyes to see and ears to hear. So hopefully you are found amongst those amongst that group, and we can start making changes here. Today's topic is going to be Hermetic principles, natural law. Okay, and I left the depiction of Yggdrasil up there because there is a correlation between these principles and these energy centers within the body. Okay, so what is Hermeticism? Hermeticism is a group of writings and teachings acclaimed to have been written and taught by Hermes Trismegistus, or Thoth in the ancient Egyptian cosmology, astrotheology, whatever you want to call it. We'll call it cosmology for the sake of time. So you can find this gathering of these teachings in the Hermetica, the Corpus Hermeticum. There's several books like the Kybalion, there's the book The Golden Dawn, there's several different books on Hermeticism explaining the principles in a bit more detail than I'll probably be able to get into today. This is just a little crash course. You can find a little bit deeper, significantly deeper, in-depth analysis done by Mark Passio on his website, whatonearthishappening.com. He has a podcast series. You can download all of them for free. It's great. You know, if you want to just listen and learn about stuff, I highly recommend that you check them out. Contempt prior to investigation will lead a man to everlasting ignorance. Remember that. So, there are 7 principles of Hermeticism, or of the Hermetica, okay? And these are principles that you can observe for yourself in the physical realm. Okay, this isn't just like some kind of weird crock of spiritual mumbo jumbo that somebody came up with without experimentation, or just, you know, maybe they ate too many mushrooms or something and got a little weird in the head. I don't know. You know what some of these other people out there writing books are about, but these are principles that you can definitely, most definitely, observe in the real world. And if you have any kind of logical brain and you think about it, then you can see it without even having to look outward in the present moment. You can look at your past and see these things. Okay? So, without further ado, I'd really like to get started on these principles, because I tend to trail off sometimes, and I don't want to take up too much of anyone's time, including my own. Okay, so principle number 1 of the 7 principles of the Hermetica is the principle of mentalism. Okay, now for the sake of time and for me not botching things, I printed off a little list with just some quick descriptions from the Kybalion. All these descriptions are found in the Kybalion, written by 3 initiates. Just basic descriptions of these 7 principles. Okay, so let me just run through 1 through 7. Okay, so obviously number 1 is mentalism. 2 is the principle of correspondence. 3 is vibration. 4 is polarity. 5 is rhythm. Sorry, forgot how to spell it for a second there. 6 is gender, although some places you'll look You'll find gender at number 7, and you'll find cause and effect, which is number 7. Sometimes you'll find cause and effect at number 6 and gender at 7. Sometimes you'll find gender at 6 and cause and effect at 7. I feel it fits a bit more appropriately in this order, and I'll explain why in a little bit when we get to how it correlates with Yggdrasil and our chakra system. So, principle number 1 is mentalism. Okay, the all is mind. The universe is mental. And this is really easy to grasp concept when you think about it in terms of everything that we see. Okay, from this whiteboard to this piece of paper to this marker to my shirt, my hat, my glasses. It all started off as an idea. It all started off as thought. Okay, so, you know, half the trees that you're going to find outside in the city, well, more than half really nowadays, are trees that were planted. So those trees being there were planted by a person. It started off as an idea, you know, a thought in the mind that, okay, I'm going to plant this here. Obviously, nature has its own mind. The universe has its own mind. There is a universal mind. Okay, that is one thing that people need to grasp. Okay, so, and I'm gonna throw in some biblical references here and there just to kind of tie things together for some people who may be watching that find themselves to be more of the Christian, Judeo, or even Muslim faiths. Whatever you want to follow, I don't necessarily care all that much. It doesn't affect me. Okay, so for example, God is described in the Bible as being all that was, all that is, and all that is to come. Okay, so that's the universe right there in a nutshell. The universe is, I mean, when you talk about everything in the universe, all material, all spiritual, and mental energies, you are looking, excuse me, lost my train of thought. You're looking at all that ever was, is, and will be. Even, you know, the atoms, I don't know, I haven't looked down to that kind of microscopic level myself. You know, I haven't looked into atomic structures. I have theories, whatever. We'll get to that another day. But even down to the so-called atoms, they were a part of something else at one point, and thus everything will return to dust. Eventually, you know, this was something, it is something, and it eventually will be something else. Everything returns back to nature. Okay? We'll get to that topic on another time too. So, the principle, or number 2 principle, is the principle of correspondence. Okay? So the principle of correspondence, simply put, as above, so below, as below, so above, as within, so without, as without, so within. So some people find that one a little bit weird. I did too, when I first started hearing that getting thrown around. However, when you spend some time in deep reflection, meditation, and you really try and concentrate on these things, on these principles, the principle of correspondence will show itself to you. And just to give an example, okay, so if I am going through some mental turmoil, you know, I'm struggling up here, I'm having a hard time getting tasks done, I'm having a hard time, you know, just going about my day, I'm even having a hard time coping emotionally, or whatever the case may be, you know, that will reflect in my outward expressions and my behaviors. You know, we all know that person who, when they start having a bad time at work, and I've been there more times than I can count. Now, one person who's having a bad time at work, all of a sudden you start seeing shit flying across your shop, or you see 2x4s and saw blades getting thrown across the construction site. Or back when I worked at a certain company that dealt with customer packages, you know, there would be people that would start chucking people's packages or kicking them breaking them, you know, like because they're having a hard time up here. Okay, that is, it starts in the mind. It starts in the mentalism. Okay, that's where this is starting. It starts in the mind. Okay, it doesn't start like, oh, I'm having a hard time mentally because, you know, something that's in front of me. It all starts with the mind state. It starts with how you react. You know, that input, you know, process it and output. That outputs your behavior. Your behavior is a symptom of something that came before. Okay? So, principle number 3 is the principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. Now, some people might look at, say, you know, this whiteboard and say that it's not vibrating, it's not moving, you know. Yeah, you know, if I touch it, like, you can see it move, you know, but like I put my hand on it, well, I can feel it vibrating a little bit, but not because of that, but because of stuff going on around me. Although there is a way to tap into that ability. Whether people want to agree with me on that or not, I don't necessarily care. However, if you were to break it down from the science of things, okay, what they tell us in this whole Church of Scientism, not Scientology, Church of Scientism, you know, where everybody just blindly follows what the so-called experts say about everything, even they will tell you that down to the atomic level, there are little particles that are constantly moving called electrons. So there's your vibration right there. There's your movement. And they tell us that these electrons never stop moving, you know. So it's just a constant movement. Everything's moving. Okay, whether we see that or not is irrelevant. Absolutely irrelevant. Whether you believe in this or not, it is absolutely irrelevant. It does not change what is. Whether you believe in something or not, it does not change whether it existed or currently exists. That is one of the biggest things most people have a hard time getting over. And it's something that, you know, I had a hard time at one point with as well. But it's not like that anymore. Okay, so principle number 4 is the principle of polarity. Okay, so everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. Okay, so everything is dual. Everything has poles. I mean, we see it on our planet. There's a North Pole, South Pole. We see it in batteries. There's a positive end and a negative end. Excuse me. You know, we see it everywhere. Even within man, there is good, there is bad. Okay? People like to think that the nature of man is just inherently bad. I'm here to tell you that's a crock of bullshit. Absolute crock. Okay? Our nature as a human being is that we are programmable. Okay? Really big there, really big stuff right there. Because a lot of people like to think that our nature is just to fight and be violent. That's not how we are. Like, naturally. When we're born as kids, we're not naturally just violent. We're nice, generous, kind people. I mean, I've been told that about myself, you know. I've been told that about other people that, like, you look at them and be like, oh, that person used to be nice. You know, we all know people like that. Okay? But those different aspects of ourselves are brought out through either traumas or other events that occurred in our life through our childhood and growing up as young adults, teenagers, and then even into our 20s, 30s, and even 40s for some people. You know, there's some people that are still going through that mental twist from either being in the military, police. You know, there's people that are out there doing stuff in the drug world and all that, but that's a big conversation that we can get into another time. But the big thing to understand is that just because this is black and this is white doesn't mean that They are two separate things. Okay, they are still connected to each other. They're just on opposite poles. They're on opposite ends. Okay, and remember, this represents many different things. When it comes to light, sound frequency, there's many different correlations and correspondences with this depiction and things where it actually applies within the human body, within the way that we operate, even within our planet, within other organisms. You know, you get my point. Moving on. So, the principle of rhythm is number 5. Everything flows out and in, everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. Okay, so that's a really big one for a lot of people to understand. Because people don't want to look at the general patterns of things. Okay, in order to understand what is, you have to look back and understand what was. Okay, so we see this rhythm in everything that we do. You know, if you eat around the same times every day, you're going to have bowel movements around the same time every day. You know, if you drink water at like the same times every day and do the same physical activities at the same times every day, you're going to get into a good rhythm. There's something within us that we call the circadian rhythm. It regulates our sleep, our eating, our bowel movements, you know, our energy flow within our body. Okay, everything has rhythm. Think about music. You know, like just the strumming of a single string on a guitar. That sound is a vibrational frequency. It is a rhythm of vibration. Okay? Anything that has any kind of energy has rhythm behind that energy. There's a frequency happening right there. So, principle of gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. A lot of people, especially a lot of those macho men, like to try and say, I don't have a feminine side, or something along those lines. And it's a bunch of bull. It's an absolute bunch of bull. Every single person has a feminine and masculine side. Now, whether or not that's thrown way out of balance or not, that's up to that person and their behaviors and the way that they take care of themselves. But nonetheless, everything has a male and female aspect to it. Even myself, okay? And you know, people can say whatever they want. Does not matter. Here's how you can just look at it and see for yourself. So if you were to look at depictions of the brain, there's the R complex, the reptile complex, which is your brain stem. Then you get up into the limbic system, which is your emotional center. And then you have your neocortex, otherwise known as the telencephalon. That is basically the outer layer that everybody seems to think of when they think of a brain, you know, with all the folds, the hills and valleys and everything. Excuse me. So that telencephalon is split down the middle. Okay, you have the left hemisphere. I don't know if it's going to show up right on the camera. This is my left side. This is my right side. Okay, the left side is the masculine side. The right side is the feminine side. The left side is responsible for logic and rational thinking. The right side is responsible for the care and the intuitive and creative thinking. Okay? So there's your masculine and feminine principles. Okay? And that's just within us. Every single human being has this. You can find it in all walks of life. But just remember that, like with electricity, for example, with electricity, you have your amperage, you have your voltage, and then you have your neutral. I'm just going to mark it with an N. That's your ground, right? That's your androgen. Okay, that would represent the blending of the two. The hermaphrodite, okay, as discussed with hermaphroditus, Hermes and Aphrodite coming together, creating a child named Hermaphroditus, who was said to have had the face of a man and a woman. Okay, so, and you can see these things everywhere. Okay, when it comes to the positive, negative, neutral. But there's also many different ways to interpret that too. So the positive would be the creative, the negative would be the destructive, and the neutral would be, nonetheless, indifferent. I'll say indifferent. Okay, so that can also be interpreted as the positive, the creative would be the future, and then the negative would be the past, and the neutral would be the present. Okay, and that's also part of why they tell you to be in the present moment. We'll have another discussion on electricity, and we'll have a discussion on how these things correlate with some of the mythologies, especially Norse mythology. We'll get into the language of that on another time. And last but not least, cause and effect. Every cause has its effect, every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. And this isn't man's law, this is God's law, natural law. If you're uncomfortable with the word God, put nature. If you're uncomfortable with describing nature as an intelligent force, I don't know what to tell you, but call it whatever you want to get the point across. Okay? Excuse me. Everything has a cause and effect. Everything that is in effect of some cause in the past. Okay? That is where we're operating right now, is on the plane of effects. Okay? Most people try to only look at the plane of effects in order to get to a solution, not really realizing that if they do nothing about the cause, then they're not going to solve the problem. So everything that was, everything that is, and everything that will be has a cause and effect. Everything in the universe, even the universe itself, is the effect of some sort of cause. Okay? Everything in the universe has a gender. Everything in this universe has rhythm and polarity and vibration. Everything corresponds to something else at a different level. Everything in the universe has some form of consciousness tied to it, whether that is a big collection of consciousness, or, well, what we would refer to as a larger collection of consciousness, like in human beings, or even down to the cellular level. Even our cells have intelligence and a form of consciousness guiding them through their own life cycle. And that, even those cells are just a reflection of us. That law of correspondence, as above, so below, we are a reflection of the macrocosm. The macrocosm is a reflection of us. We are a reflection of our own microcosm. So if our cells, for example, like my skin cells, if my skin cells get poisoned, then that is going to reflect in my outward expression in my body. If I drink too much alcohol, there's my cause. The effect will be I have liver issues, or, I'm throwing up, or whatever. These are really easy to understand and see how they apply in our own lives each and every day if we just have a keen eye and pay attention to things. And we don't even really need a keen eye. If you just understand how these things work, you can see it everywhere. And it's crazy how all these people running around, doing stupid things, don't understand that not only are they hurting other people, but ultimately they hurt themselves. For example, like if two people are out hanging out, and one of the people decides that he's gonna get mad and punch somebody, right? Like two people go to a bar, they're having drinks, one guy gets mad, punches another dude, but the other guy takes the fall. Okay? The person who took the fall is getting their natural law karmic debt repaid by, hey, you lied, because lying is a violation of natural law. We'll get to the violations here in a moment. But that person is now going to jail because they're lying and taking the blame. But the other person who got off scot-free, who actually did that, they will get theirs too. The universe realizes what's going on. And really, this universe, this universal mind, sees both in the wrong there. Because one lied and took the blame, and the other one committed the act, committed the violence, you know, the initiation of force. And so they're both ultimately going to repay that karmic debt. One probably a bit more, well, not probably, one will be a bit more severely paid. And it can manifest in many different ways. You know, if I come up and punch someone in the face, you know, someone could immediately turn around and punch me in the face. Or it could be, you know, 10 years down the road, all of a sudden I trip and fall, or I slip and drop something on my head and it breaks my jaw. You know, there's many different ways that natural law will come back and pay that debt back to you in order for you to balance the scales. The goal is to try and keep them in balance, or, you know, make sure that, you know, the odds are in your favor when you decide that, or when your body decides that it's done putting up with your bullshit. You know, some happens a lot quicker than others, you know, but I digress. So, there are your 7 principles of Hermetic law. Really easy to get a grasp on, and even just, you can experiment with things within your own life, you know, when it comes to this. So, how does this tie into Yggdrasil? Okay, so just like with Kabbalah, and just like with the chakra system, it has its correspondences. Okay, so we'll start up here, or we'll start down here in the realm of the red, you know, the realm of Saturn, or what I like to term Satan. This is Satan's area right here, so to speak. But we have to build our foundation upon this right here. We build our foundation upon survival, right? If you watch yesterday's video, you'll see what I'm talking about. So the biggest thing that we have to realize is that everything has a cause. Every effect has a cause. Everything that we experience is the effect of something that caused it in our past. It's up to us to try and determine what caused it. Okay, so there's your foundation right here. And then go up into here, you know, your pleasure center, your sacral chakra. Go from the root chakra to the sacral chakra, your pleasure center, as far as the chakra system. And there's your gender. Makes sense because the pleasure center of the sacral chakra deals with your genitals. Okay, really easy. Now, this one's a little bit weird. Bear with me. You know, if you can't follow along, or if it doesn't make sense to you, that's okay. If you have an active imagination and you're intelligent enough, then you'll actually agree with me on this. So going up, we've got rhythm corresponding with the solar plexus chakra, which is the realm of Mars, the god of war. Now, the thing about that is the god of war, it deals with rhythm. Okay? If you've ever boxed, if you've ever fought, if you've ever gone out and done airsoft wars, or anything like that that involves any sort of simulation of combat, or actually deals with hand-to-hand combat, you'll know that there is a rhythm to the fight. Okay, there is absolutely a rhythm to the fight, and it's, this is your god of war right here. This is Mars. This is your solar plexus chakra. This deals with all your guts. This is why they were, in my opinion at least, why if you are lacking in courage, they will refer to you as being yellow-bellied. It's really not that hard to grasp. But some people may disagree with me, and that's fine. We're not all here to agree on everything. We're here to agree on the things that matter most and figure out the rest of the petty bullshit later. Okay. So, going up to the principle of polarity. Funny how it corresponds with the heart chakra, which corresponds with Earth. Because the Earth operates in the 7-planet aspect of our solar system, the same way that the heart operates in the body. Okay, so the heart and the earth act the same way within our bodies, 7 chakra system, and then the 7 planets of antiquity. So it's funny how that pops up, and now there's the principle of polarity lining up with the earth. Moving on upwards, we have the principle of vibration. Okay, corresponding with the throat chakra, okay, which makes all too much sense. Think about it. I'm talking vibration through my vocal cords. And what's even funnier about that is in my video titled "We're All One, Time to Wake Up," I explain a little bit how this blue zone corresponds with Venus. Well, Venus is Aphrodite. Venus is the Roman version of Aphrodite from the Greek mythology, and the Norse mythology version of Venus or Aphrodite is Freya. Okay, well, in biblical terms, this is Lucifer. Now, if you need me to tie this all together really quick, it's really simple. Venus, the most beautiful of the gods, the goddess of beauty. Who is Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty. Who is Freya, the goddess of beauty. Who is Lucifer, God's most beautiful angel. But in the Bible, it was portrayed as a masculine character. They don't want you to look at the feminine so much in a lot of these biblical texts. They really try and stress the masculine side of things. And we can do a lot of discussions on that another time. So, principle of correspondence, lining up with the third eye chakra, works brilliantly because the things that you can picture in your own mind, if you apply action towards those, they will manifest into this physical realm. Okay? If you take, this is something that I learned in a class that I was in a while back. People were doing these things called vision boards. I never actually did it, but I know people who have. They put down they get this big board, they put down a bunch of pictures and descriptions of the things that they want, the visions that they have for their future, and then they start working towards it. And then there's been some people who put down a picture of the house that they wanted, or a house that they thought they wanted. They wanted a house that looked like this, and then 20 years later they come across their old vision board up in the attic, and that picture of that house is the exact house that they're living in the present time. Now, whether there's any validity to that, I don't know. I don't know these people. Take it with a grain of salt. If you know these people, great. But point being is that if you take that vision from your mind's eye and you apply action towards it in the physical realm, it will manifest what you pictured, so long as you take the right or correct actions to get there. So, number 7 is the principle of mentalism, lining up with the crown chakra, only appropriate because, as with the We Are All One video, this corresponds with the moon, which corresponds with the mind. Mentalism and the mind. Okay, so a little bit of background on this and how this all correlates. You can see it in language. Let me back up a little bit. So one of the one of the Roman moon goddesses was named Luna, I believe, which is where we get the word lunacy, because lunacy has to do with an imbalance in the mind. And they used to think that these imbalances were brought on by certain phases of the moon cycle. And I'm not going to say that they were wrong, because I've noticed some crazy shit happening around the full moons too. Okay? So, there's your moon, there's your mind, your mentalism, and it's just so funny how that correlates and lines up with each other. I shouldn't even say it's funny, it's synchromistic, the way that stuff works sometimes. Now, getting on to the transgressions against natural law. Okay, so there's something that people need to understand. There are things that we are allowed to do and things that we are not allowed to do, but under this natural law. And it's really simple, you know. What you do has an effect, okay? Cause and effect, like we were talking about. If what you do causes harm, like actual harm, to an unwilling participant, an unwilling sentient being, okay, if you need to look up the word sentient, then do that. Look it up in as many different dictionaries, get as many different definitions as you possibly can for that. You should do that with all words that you don't know the definitions of, and look up the etymologies, you know, look up their roots and how they've gone through transformations throughout decades to centuries to even millennia from different languages. So there's things that we're allowed to do and things that we're not allowed to do. The things that we're not allowed to do is we're not allowed to cause direct harm to other sentient beings without their permission. Okay? And I have to stress that because some person, you know, in a comment section somewhere has probably already brought it up to Mark Passio. Oh, well, what if people agree to, like, say, fight in a bar, for example? You know, if two people agree to mutual combat, then look, they're both willing participants. You know, some people might say that homosexuality is one of those things where it's causing harm, but you got to realize that unless one person is raping the other, they're both willing participants, and that's in their right. You know, I don't necessarily care for all that. Most people don't, but just so people understand, okay, that if it's not against natural law, then go ahead, give it a shot. If you hurt yourself, that's on you. All right? So that's the easiest way that I can explain it, because in order to know what you can do, it's actually easier to know what you can't. And just realize that these things, these causes all have effects that send that ripple effect out throughout the universe. That effect will eventually become another cause for something else later down the road. Okay? So there are 5 basic transgressions against natural law, and Mark Passio will tell you they all can be summed up to one thing. Okay, so the first one, well, it can be murder, it can be assault, but for the sake of clarity, we will just call it initiating force or harm. So the initiation of force / harm, okay? May seem like a mouthful for some people. I'm not here to, talk with people that eat crayons, So if that's you, I'm sorry. So number 2, it's basically summed up to rape. A lot of people want to get caught up in the technicality of the word rape, but here's the thing. If you are infringing upon another person's free will choice to have sexual relations with whoever they want, that's rape. If you are molesting somebody, if you are taking inappropriate pictures of them or planting cameras like some of these weirdos do out in the world, or like that one tweaker a couple months ago who hid in a porta potty and doing weird stuff. Okay, so we'll just for the sake of keeping it simple, I'm just gonna put this as sexual misconduct. Because rape is, like, in today's society, rape is labeled as one thing, and it really shouldn't be labeled as just one particular thing. So we got sexual misconduct here. Number 3, we'll call this theft. All right, pretty simple. Don't steal shit. Don't take stuff that isn't yours. Okay? And it goes beyond the physical. All right? It goes beyond the physical. If you are taking somebody's time, if you are doing things that is taking them away from the tasks that they need to be doing without their permission, then you're committing a wrong. You're blocking them from being able to do the things that they want to do. So it goes beyond taking of physical things. Okay? So number 4, we've got trespass. Now, you can be trespassing onto someone's property. You can be trespassing into someone's affairs, like an event. Someone tells you, hey, we don't want you at this wedding ceremony or the reception. Don't show up, and you show up anyways. You're trespassing at that point. At that point, you are violating natural law. And then number 5 is coercion. This is a big one because a lot of people, when they hear the description of it, they agree that, yeah, it's a bad thing, but then they'll advocate for it in the next breath in the example I'm about to give. So, coercion is the initiation of force through threat of violence or imprisonment or something along those lines. So if I come up to you and say, I want 20% of all the money that you made, all the food that you produced, all the water that you collected, all the buildings that you built, I want 20%, or I'm going to come in and I'm going to start putting you and your family in handcuffs and cages, then most people would look at me and be like, dude, get the fuck out of here. Like, get out of here. Like, no. But for some reason, everyone advocates for that same thing when the government does it through the IRS with the whole tax system. Because, in case you didn't know, taxes are only paid because people are scared that they'll go to jail. That's the only reason why people pay taxes. They're scared that people are going to show up and send them to jail, or they're going to get in trouble. That's the only reason why. Otherwise, nobody would be willingly giving away 20%, 30% of their income to a government that misspends it. And I'm not saying any particular government, but, excuse me just a moment. And I mean, if you can't see that taxes are just an expression of coercion, I don't know how to help you. I don't know how to reach you. Because it is absolutely, collecting taxes through threat of violence is absolutely a violation of the way nature works. That isn't the way nature works. Is you don't get to force your way of life upon people. Okay, and it doesn't matter if there's just me and you, or me, you, and 8 billion people out there. It does not matter how many people there are. You do not get to force your will upon other people. It doesn't matter if 7.6 billion people all agreed that I needed to give up this marker. It does not matter. It's not theirs, it's mine. It's in my possession. I paid for it with the money that I earned. through my labor, my pain and my sweat, my blood, my tears that I put in order to provide for myself, my family, and get the things that I need. You people, whoever you are, do not have a right to, to lay a claim to anything of mine, but especially my body. You don't get to tell me what I get to do or not do with my body. Okay, there's this natural law underlying the totality of existence that takes care of that for all of you. Okay, so you don't need to tell me that I don't have the right to go stealing from people. I already know that. Okay, but you people need to understand that you don't have the right to tell people that you can't go shoot up heroin, for example. It's their body. If they want to go shoot up heroin, that's their choice. And this is going to be a touchy subject for a lot of people. And I've had this conversation with a lot of people on YouTube. A lot of people will bring up, and I've had it happen to me, they bring up the whole idea of, oh, well, what if someone's trying to kill themselves? Well, hey, if they don't want to live here, it's not your right to force them to. Like, if they will, it's their soul, their body, it doesn't belong to you. You don't have a say in what happens. And if you think you do, I suggest you take a long walk off a short bridge with some freaking concrete shoes on you. Okay? Because that shit's not right. And this is coming from somebody who's had family members commit suicide, who's had family members die from doing stupid shit, like running across the street. This is coming from somebody who's gone through internal struggles, because I wanted to think that I could force other people to bend to my will. I mean, to be honest, I've done it to the people I love the most. And it's taken me losing so many friendships and relationships to learn this truth, this big truth, and that is, we're only responsible for ourselves and the things that we create. These are the things that we're responsible for, nothing else. I'm not responsible for tiptoeing around your triggers. It's your responsibility for you to get over that and figure out a way to cope. It's not, look, I can't learn how to cope for you. I can't learn how to unblock your chakras for you. You have to take that responsibility and run with it. You have to take that and run with it. Otherwise, you're just going to be stuck in the loop. You're not thinking for yourself. You're under mind control. And for those who do not think mind control exists, I'm here to tell you it absolutely exists, and it's really, really simple tests that you can do. Walk outside, start talking to people, see how many people just blindly follow a religion or a government or even the idea of money without doing any further research. And the people who cannot think for themselves, who just blindly follow those people, they don't think for themselves, that's because someone else is doing the thinking for them. Okay, either you control your mind or somebody else. I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent. I feel like this has been long enough. It's a long video. If you make it through it, really glad, really happy for that. If not, well, you're lost. Contempt prior to investigation leads a man to everlasting ignorance. So, I hope everyone has a great night. I'll see you sometime later this week. We'll be talking more about these Hermetic principles and how all this stuff ties in with Kabbalah, with the staff of Hermes Trismegistus, the symbolism portrayed in that staff that we'll find in our society, and many more things to come in the following days and weeks and even months, barring incident. So I hope everyone enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe, and if you got something out of this, please, all I ask is that you share it with somebody who you think will benefit from this information. Thank you guys. Have a great night. I appreciate it. Bye.